Hey everyone, Brenda here with the Personal Training Collective. I just wanted to share with you some information that I learned at a recent NSCA conference that was held in Richmond. And so the NSCA is the National Strength and Conditioning Association. And there's a really interesting presentation on muscle building and muscle hypertrophy and all the different things that impact our body's ability to build muscle tissue. And in light of the call that we had with Mahal a couple weeks ago around nutrition and stress, there's actually a lot of things in what she said that connected back to this presentation at the NSCA conference. And so I thought I would take a few minutes today to just pull those pieces together for you because I think it's really fascinating. For me, when I talk about things like this, I totally get to get my geek on. And so I hope that you find this as fascinating as I do. So when we take a look at wanting to build muscle, which for a lot of us, our clients, that is their goal. If it's clearly, a hypertrophy goal, they've got some sort of size goal that they want to achieve. It might be a performance-related goal that requires hypertrophy as part of their training program. Or it could be a weight loss goal, and we know that the more muscle mass that we have, the better able we are to actually burn calories when we're being active and when we're not being active. So muscle building is going to be a goal for probably most of your clients at some point in your time with them. So when we look at muscle building, there's a number of environmental triggers or things in our environment that will either stimulate our body to build muscle, or it will tell our body to actually start to break down our muscle tissue. And so those triggers are something called growth factors, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. Nutrition. So we've always known that eating healthy is important, but there's some really cool research that's come out that really starts to get into the details of exactly why is nutrition important to muscle building. And then mechanical stress or mechanical load. So today we're going to start by talking about the growth factors, and then I'll do a couple more videos getting into the nutrition and getting into the mechanical stress aspect. So for today, growth factors. So when we look at growth factors are just things that stimulate cells to grow or for our body to produce more cells. And there's lots of different types of growth factors in our body. One of the ones that gets looked at the most when we talk about muscle building is insulin-like growth factor, or abbreviated IGF-1. So this is a fairly important growth factor when we take a look at how our body actually builds muscle. So when we look at the whole process, you'll see that we have our environmental triggers across the top, and they're all leading to have some impact on protein synthesis, to either increase it or to decrease it. And the whole process here of making proteins, of this protein synthesis, it happens through a pathway called mTOR. mTOR. If you're a total geek and you want to Google this, go for it. Just be warned. It's a heavy, heavy subject. And there's a lot of information, but if you love to get your geek on, Google mTOR. So, but basically this is just a pathway that results in us building proteins. And so when we look at protein synthesis, it does a few things for us. Obviously cell growth, which is what we are usually most concerned with as personal trainers. Also will create new blood vessels, which should also be of concern to us as personal trainers, because as our clients' bodies adapt to the type of training that we have them doing, we want them to have more blood vessels, because that's actually going to help them bring those nutrients to their body more efficiently and get rid of those waste products more efficiently. Cell metabolism, so just all the different chemical reactions that take place in our cells. Protein synthesis is a really huge piece of all of that being able to happen. And then digestion of cellular debris. And basically all that means is getting rid of all the crap. So through all of these different chemical reactions that we have in our body, there's garbage and byproducts and stuff that gets created, and the proteins that we create through this mTOR pathway also help in the digestion of that cellular debris. So today, as I said, growth factors, specifically insulin-like growth factor. It's a very important growth factor in muscle building. And what I want to talk about even more specifically is the role of stress on our body's ability to create muscle tissue, to create proteins. So when we look at stress, and I think all of us know stress is bad. Well, bad stress is bad. There's also good stress. But I don't know that we've really taken the time as an industry to really look at the effects of unhealthy stress on the actual physical response that our clients will have to their training programs. So we know that when we have high levels of cortisol, and cortisol is what's called a glucocorticoid, so it's just a steroid hormone. When levels of cortisol are high in our body, it actually prevents, or I shouldn't say prevents, it actually starts to decrease the amount of insulin-like growth factor in our body. And when that happens, that has a direct impact on how much protein synthesis can take place. So high levels of cortisol has a negative impact on our insulin-like growth factor. That has a negative impact on our ability to actually produce proteins and produce more muscle tissue. So how many of your clients do you think are experiencing some degree of stress in their life? So I talk to trainers and I'll often hear they've got these clients that they just don't make sense. They're doing everything right and yet they're not seeing the results they want to see. And I think that this stress piece is a really important component of that, because it doesn't matter what your client's doing in the gym. If their body is under a degree of stress that's resulting in their cortisol levels being higher than normal, that is going to have a negative impact on their ability to actually build muscle tissue. Now, I started this by saying this was going to connect to some of the nutrition information that Mahal shared with us. So Mahal shared with us that if your body has sort of disordered sugar metabolism, which most of us, I think, do, then that can lead to a low level of stress in our body, or perhaps a high level of stress, depending on how disordered your sugar metabolism is. And that level of constant stress actually increases your body's levels of cortisol. Increase cortisol, decrease insulin-like growth factor, decrease muscle building. So it doesn't really matter where the stress is coming from for your client, if it's emotional stress, mental stress, physical stress, and that physical stress could be coming from their diet. You know, I never really considered that my client's diet could be a source of stress, of physical stress for their body that results in an increase in cortisol. So I just wanted to try and tie these concepts together for you in a way that hopefully makes sense, that we can really start to understand some of these things that might be preventing our clients from getting the results that we think they should be getting with the effort that they're putting in. So if you've got clients that just don't seem to be making the gains in the gym, you may want to start looking at the level of stress that they're currently under, whether that's nutritional stress, emotional stress, physical stress, and see if there's some resources we can share with them or some guidance that we can offer them to get those stress levels under control and get those cortisol levels under control, so the client can actually reap the benefits of all of their hard work.